Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Microsoft Office Add-ins Community Call. My name is David Chesnut, and I am your host for this call. Let's take a look at the agenda for today. Joining us today is Juan Balmari, who's going to be talking about some add-in validation improvements on AppSource. Also joining us is our special guest, Martin van Stam, who is an MVP on Office add-ins. And he's going to be showing a really cool demo of Blazor and Office add-ins. Also, Abid Rahman is joining us today to talk about some add-in command changes. Also, Linda Cannon will be talking about some community ideas. And then we'll have some Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, just go ahead and type them into the chat as we go along, and we'll answer those as we go through the call. If there's any questions we're not able to get to today, we post a blog summary of the call several days afterwards, and anything that didn't get answered, we'll answer it there. Also, this call is being recorded, and we post it within about 24 hours to our Microsoft Community YouTube channel. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with Juan. Hello, Juan.
Hey, David, thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to take control of the presentation for a bit. And good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. So this is Juan Balmori here. I have an update for you with AppSource validation. Just to set up some context here, if you want to deploy your add-in using AppSource, basically our store, there's a validation process that is going on. We have a team of people who are validating that add-ins meet certain policies, and we have been making some improvements here. You know, this process is around taking, I don't know, depending on the type of add-in you submit, between 3 and 2 weeks. And basically, we work to try to validate your add-ins as soon as we can, right? So I have a few updates here. Just take a couple of minutes. So yeah, I will cover 3 topics, basically. First of all, the most important update is that we have a browser support update. So in a nutshell, we will no longer reject add-ins that are not supporting Trident, or basically Internet Explorer. Well, that's huge news here. And then I'm going to talk a little bit also about validation failures. You know, what are our top issues that the team is finding, so that when you submit an add-in, you kind of pay special attention to these issues, so that your add-in, I mean, if you help us, your add-in will be validated way faster. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, the context about the Trident support. So many months ago, if you can recall, Microsoft, we announced that IE will no longer be supported for Office web applications. That didn't mean that add-ins were not supported in IE. It basically meant that the web apps, so if you went to Office for the web, you know, basically Word will not be supported anymore in Internet Explorer. Right? And many people assumed that that was the same for Office add-ins, and that's not the case. We continue, in fact, today, we continue to support IE in web add-ins, and we need to support it. Believe me, if it was a choice of my team, we will say IE is no longer supported, everything is in WebView 2. But however, that's not possible because we have Office 2013, Office 2016, 2019 MSI, that we are still supporting these products until, as you can see on this slide, Office 2013 is going to be supported until April 11, 2023. 2016 and 2019 are going to be supported until 2025. So basically, there's still a universe of users that are on these products, and they don't have other browser options but Trident. So that's why we were still requiring it. Now, the good news here is that, you know, well, if you're in Microsoft 365 subscription, if you have a subscription for Office 365, whether that subscription is a monthly subscription or a semi-annual subscription or a MEC subscription, most of you folks, and by most, I mean more than 95%, are now running in WebView 2. So basically, we were monitoring how active was the activations going on in WebView 2 versus all the other engines. And we finally are happy to announce that WebView 2 has become the mainstream in the Office add-in world. So a very, very significant percentage of Office add-ins are activated in WebView 2. And then as a result of this, what we are deciding in the store is that we are not basically, now we are recommending you to support Trident. We are not enforcing it. So basically, if you submit an add-in to the store and it fails loading in Trident, we are not going to reject your add-in, but we are going to basically what we call soft fail it, which means it's going to be approved, you're going to be in the store, and we will recommend you, to support Trident because, your add-in is not working in Trident, and maybe you will have a customer that is in 2016 or 2019 that they want to use your add-in, no? So that is, this decision is made effective immediately. So if any add-ins you submit today to the store will no longer be rejected based on lack of support for Trident. So those are the news for today. I personally recommend you to, if you feel that you have a universe of users who are very active in 2013 or 2016, I recommend you to support it. And basically, you will get the feedback. No, we have a review system in the store, so I think at this point, you will hear from customers if you really need to do it, and it's up to you to, how do you react to that feedback. So that's news number one. By the way, we already updated our documentation. If you go to our website, Ricky just yesterday changed this paragraph that is basically summarizing what I just said here. So it's now public, policies updated, it's all done. So moving on, I just want to talk to you about two topics here. Number one, top failures when validating add-ins. So the top failure up to recently was lack of support of Trident. That was the number one reason of failing an add-in in the store. But that is no longer an issue today. So the top 8 issues that come after that one are these ones, right? And the first 4 are kind of the concentrating the vast majority of the cases. So if, and by the way, this is, if you want to help you, this is basically what you need to put special focus on. The number one reason of failing an add-in is the testing notes, right? So basically people submit add-ins and they don't include how we can test them. So we don't have a test account that we can log into the add-in. So we don't have a very good idea of how to try your add-in in the different environments, right? And if we don't have this information, evidently, we cannot continue the validation, right? So please be as detailed as you can, sharing the details on how we should test your add-ins. Give us the accounts, the users and passwords we need, to test it, or how can we create a test account for it. Simplify our lives in this sense, and basically you should be fine. There's a very large volume of offers that have this issue. And it's basically, maybe your add-in is working perfectly, but just because our team is not able to load it, we need to reject it, right? And I have seen, many times that we reject an add-in that doesn't have clear testing notes. The second top failure, which is very related to the first one, is the first run experience. So many add-ins don't have a clear, this is a bit subjective, I would admit, but many times we don't know how to use an add-in. It's like the UX, the experience, there are not enough instructions on how to use it. There are some add-ins that are really beautiful and the design is it's very intuitive and it's kind of obvious what you need to do. And there are other cases where we don't know what to do first, So providing a good instructions on the first run experience, it's going to help a lot with your validation, right? If you are using an external service, many people forget to add a way to sign in, sign out of that service, or to sign up, if you don't have an account on that service, a way to kind of start an account, it's not exposed, And then the one that I want to also chat more here is the additional charges. So there are many offers in the store that require, they have like a free experience, but then require users to buy a subscription to a service or stuff like that. And you don't disclose that, in your submission. So every time you submit your add-in to AppSource and you're charging at some point for additional services, you need to tell us. This is kind of a legal thing that we need to support. So we appreciate that you help us with this. If you help us with those 4 issues, I am pretty sure that your add-in is going to be validated in less than 1 or 2 days. Okay. Okay. So, and the third thing that was the second topic. The third thing that I want to talk to you about is that now we have like a direct engagement with the validation team mechanism in place. So what used to happen in this until recently was that, let's say you submit an add-in and we find an issue and we reject it, and you want to challenge that decision. You're saying, hey, guys, why are you rejecting? And basically you escalate the situation, right? What used to happen is that we were creating a support ticket in CSS. So we were involving our support organization here. And evidently that came with a little bit of, that our response time was increased significantly just by involving the support organization. But now there's a way that you can actually contact us directly, right? So the way this works is that every time that we send you an email after your certification or your validation, we send you a report, that what happened, why we rejected your add-in, what were the policies that were kind of violated that you needed to fix. And then we are including a link, to a form to contact my team directly. So basically, if you fill up this form, that you will find the link in your email, we will get your case directly, the validation team, and we will immediately start working on your case. And if needed, we can meet with you and talk about what's going on, right? So that's also good news that I have to share with you. And in fact, that's what I have for today. I see there are a few comments in the chat that I will address in the chat. But other than that, David, I think I'm done with my content.
Cool. Thank you very much, Juan. It's great to see the improvements coming for AppSource validation.
Thank you.
All right. And so now we have Martin van Stam, who's going to be talking about Blazor and Office add-ins. Take it away, Martin.
Well, good afternoon. It's afternoon in the Netherlands, where I'm located currently. My point of my presentation is going into Blazor Office add-ins. My problem with the Office add-ins usually was, and I give a little bit of history, we started with VBA and VStudio.NET and COM+. That's where I come from. And Office JavaScript APIs were not really my thing. So I really had to struggle with that. And the solution for the COM add-ins and VBA add-ins obviously is that the Office JavaScript APIs are cross-platform and using generic web technologies. But the problem with that is if you are a regular .NET developer, you're really not adopting this API. In the beginning, it was kind of incomplete. It's now getting better, and especially in Excel, it's almost in par with the what we have with Visto. But the real adoption rate for .NET and .NET developers stayed behind, including myself, and that was making it hard to adopt the Office JavaScript API. It's by now it's getting more complete, but I was still thinking about how to get .NET developers involved in this. And the way to do that, I was thinking, what if we can create Blazor add-ins within Office? And obviously, Blazor started as a server technology, and as you know, Office JavaScript APIs require the code to run on the client. And when that happened, Blazor also developed the Blazor Webassembly option. And the Blazor Webassembly option is really on the client side. So if I move over to my screen there, we'll go to the demo. What I developed in my live coding sessions on Twitch and on YouTube is building an Office add-in based on the Blazor WebAssembly technologies. And I created a pull request for that by now, so you can see that over here. And so let's try build that thing. If you go to the Office add-ins samples repo, just go to the root and you copy the GitHub clone command and you go into a new folder. We're starting just from scratch, there's nothing in here. And we pull in the GitHub command, pulling in the full GitHub repository from the Office add-ins. This will pull in all the code from the current Office add-ins that are available, that are developed right now. But this will show you that it's not adding the pull request in yet. So you have to do a little bit of an extra step to get that. If you go to the folder and see the samples, you'll see there's no Blazor add-in in here. So if we go to GitHub again and we go to the pull requests, then the fourth option is there, is my pull request. We select that and do it again. Copy the code here. Go back to the thing in here. Run the command. This will check out the pull request and immediately shift over to the pull request that was created. If I now go to the samples folder again, now you will see there is a Word Blazor add-in. So we go into the Word Blazor add-in. And in here, there are two solutions. There's basically one solution. I can open that in Visual Studio. Let's see, with a Z. Pick the solution, just run it. I'm running the Visual Studio Preview 2022. This will load the project. Let me pull this a little bit to the side here. Well, never mind. In the solution, there is a Blazor add-in. That's actually the Blazor add-in that will be hosted in the task pane. And there's a second project in here that will be providing the side loading of this project inside Word. So if all goes right, we just have to hit F5 here. If the demo gods are with us, it should trigger Word and load the add-in there. There is Word, and you already see that it's loading the add-in. In the back, you see here, it's starting the Blazor server, but it's a WebAssembly, so it's running on the client. So if you open Word here, and show task pane, you should see exactly the same thing here. And this is basically the same thing that you see over here. And this is a WebAssembly application. The reason why this is working is because the code that is running here is actually running on the client. So it is possible to interact with the host in here. In this case, the host is Word, but we can do things with that, like setting up the document where we put in, let's say, 5 paragraphs in here. I'm going to convert these to content controls and put a tag on the content controls. If we go in here and show the default design mode and have a properties, you see now that I put a tag in here like odd for each of the content controls, so odd, even, etc. If I modify content controls, I make it visible actually that they are tagged, and put some things in there. Let's move that a little bit bigger. That's not all. You can also put an event handler on the content controls. And for this, I need to open the inspector. Otherwise, there's no use of showing what's happening. Not sure if I can make that big. Yeah, we can make that bigger as well. So now you can see that the on-deleted handlers and the on-selection change handlers are added to the content controls. So now if I delete one of the content controls, let's say delete the first event, even content control, it will show you that the even content control is triggered. So the event is actually handled. This is something that that is only available in the preview at this time, for Word that is. So be careful that you have the preview bits running for that. But merely for this demo, it's just showing what is possible and what you can do with it. If I now remove the event handlers again, and I do basically just select the first even content control again for deletion, it will now not show any events anymore in this displays. What I did with this my little demo, I added a couple of small demos. I picked randomly some small samples from the repo, and you see while I'm switching, it's actually loading again. This is something that you probably want to avoid, but for demo purpose, I put this in. Because you basically want to make this a single page application instead of 5 separate applications. If you run this, each time it's loading again. So if I pick the quotes one and clear the document here, we can just add in some quotes, all from the Blazor add-in, or we can put in some paragraphs. If you go over the code, you will see that I'm using some different methods to do this. Inserting paragraphs, I'm now inserting 5 paragraphs, and it also returns the count of the paragraphs. So it's actually interacting with the task pane. So to show you how this is done, we go back to Visual Studio. Let's close this one, so that we leave the debug mode. Don't save. And you can see it as is. It's you just hit F5 and it should be running. So if it's not running, then please contact us and we can investigate that. But the Blazor thing, if you go to the Blazor application, I'm not sure if I can make that a little bit bigger. I don't think so. What you see here is the actual www root with the static items in there. And a Blazor application actually consists of a special file that's named like the Blazor add-in.lib.module.js. And this is needed to preload the Office host before Blazor kicks in. So if I make this a little bit bigger, then you will see that there is a before start. So before Blazor is starting, we are preparing Office to run, and it will actually detect if it's working in Word or in the browser. And when it's terminating, when Blazor is stopping, then you can do other things if you need it. There's nothing in there at this time. The actual add-in consists of pages like the index page. That's the one that we showed, the first one, where I did the content control stuff. Let's see if we can make this a little bit readable. What you see here is the Office layout, the Blazor layout that is, with the page identifiers. If you go to the website and you type in content controls after your URL, you will go to this page. If you go to Hello World, there's a different page name there. But it's all conform the Blazor programming standards. And the way this is done is that the markup is actually in the Razor page, and the code is in the code behind page. You can also do this inside the Razor page by an add code tag, but I prefer to put it back into the code behind. The way it's interacting with Office is using the JavaScript interop option. It's using the Microsoft JS interop. And as you can see here, with the setup document, if I go to the Razor page, you will see that the setup button, this one, will trigger the setup function on the C# file. That's this one. And the C# file in this case will run the setup document JavaScript function that is in the isolated JavaScript file. In this JavaScript file, the function is really exported, and this one, as you can see, this will interact with Word, the run thing on Word. And by accessing the context from this environment, it's able to do things like inserting paragraphs or inserting text and things like that. Can do much more complicated things like the event handlers. Let's see if we can find that part here, the register events that will add the handle content delete and the handle selection change events to the context, so that whenever the content control is deleted or changed from selection, you will get a notification from that. Yeah, that's about it for now. The demo, I think, is fairly trivial. So yeah, have a look at that, and whenever, I'm not sure when it's merged in the full repo, but for now you can use the same trick as I did. Clone the repo and then go to the pull request and get the command from that as well. So with that, I want to finalize it with my own information there quickly. That should be this one. So who am I? I'm Maarten van Stam. I've been an MVP since 2006, and I'm live streaming all these things with the like the Office add-ins, usually on Thursday, building Office add-ins using Blazor and .NET technologies on YouTube. If you search me for Soft as in Software, that's the name that I'm using to do my live streaming, or you can contact me on Twitter on AAFVSTAM. So if you have questions, just let me know. And that's about it, I think, for now.
Cool. Thank you, Maarten. We really appreciate your going into this space and putting together this really cool sample, especially because I've seen lots of questions out there from folks of, hey, we want to use Blazor. How do we get this to work? And, you know, so I think this it's a step forward in that space. Hopefully we can get that merged today. So hopefully that sample will be out there very soon.
Yeah.
I believe we are up to the add-in command changes by Abid.
Hello, thanks, David. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'll be going through some changes that we're making to how you register your add-in commands. So for a quick summary, what are add-in commands? I'm sure everyone is familiar with them, but essentially we have two main types of add-in commands, and add-in commands can be used to extend native parts of Office applications. I think the most common type is the one that is essentially a ribbon button, and then you can use the add-in commands to invoke two different things. One is you can either show a task pane on the side, or you also have add-in commands that actually go and execute a certain JavaScript function without showing any kind of UI. So the changes we're introducing is just for that second type. So that's the ExecuteFunction type of add-in command. So inside of your manifest, if you're using these types of add-in commands, they will be shown like the one I have on the screen. You'll have an action with the type ExecuteFunction, and then you define your function name. So this is the name of the actual JavaScript function that will be executed when the user clicks on that ribbon button. So in this case, for this example, our function name is writeText. So everything here stays the same, but what we are changing is how you actually register those handler functions or those callback functions. So to improve security in Office add-ins, we're going to be requiring you to register those callback functions with the Associate API. So if you have used some of the events in Outlook, or if you're familiar with keyboard shortcuts in Excel, this is very similar to that same paradigm. So all you have to do is essentially add a call of office.actions.associate, give it that, for the first parameter, give it the name of the function that you have defined in your manifest. And then for the second parameter, just have essentially have a pointer to the handler function. So as an example of this, I'll show you what this looks like in code. So this is taken directly from our documentation. This is just an example of a handler function that's writing text to the document. And then all you have to do is I've highlighted it in blue at the very bottom, is after you define your function, just go ahead and register it with the Associate API. So you just have to add that one line of code that says, hey, this is the handler function for my add-in command that's in the manifest. The first parameter should match exactly the name of the function that you have in the manifest, and then the second parameter is essentially the function, a pointer to the function definition itself. You can also do anonymous functions in the same way, and then just kind of put the definition of the function inside of the associate call. All right, so how do you actually test this? So this will eventually be a breaking change. We're going to be giving the community about 6 months to adopt this new paradigm, but after those 6 months, on October 30th, you will any add-in commands that use ExecuteFunction, if your handler function is not being registered, it will fail to run. I will note that this does not require a resubmission of your add-in. You're just simply making a change in your JavaScript function itself. So in order to test this method, we have added a new parameter to the script, to the actual Office.js script. How I recommend you go about this is that you make this parameter change first, and then you try to run your add-in. You will notice that the ExecuteFunction app commands fail to run. And then when you go and actually make those changes and you add the registration with the office.actions.associate API, you will notice that it continues to run as expected. So this parameter I recommend you use for testing only, because on October 30th, it will essentially become obsolete as all old ExecuteFunction commands will fail to run. So as Eugene just posted in the chat, we did announce this change on a recent blog post. You can click the link in the slide directly at the top to go and read that blog post. It has a bit more information there. But as I mentioned, these changes must be made before October 30th. And on that date, any functions with your ExecuteFunction type add-in commands that are not registered will no longer run. We have updated the documentation as well as the samples in our GitHub repo. So feel free to go check those out to see where you need to add the call. It's very simple. You just need to add one line of code after your function definitions. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to post them in the chat. If you run across any issues, feel free to report them in the GitHub repo. But essentially, yeah, that's the main change here. It is important because, as I mentioned, it will eventually be a breaking change. Over the next few weeks, we will start to reach out directly to some of our partners that we have identified is using these types of add-in commands. But if you have some time now, please do go and make that change as soon as possible, and then you have nothing else to really worry about. So yeah, that's mostly what I have for add-in command changes. Thank you so much for your time, and then back to you, David.
Thanks, Abid. Appreciate the update. Looks like there might be one or two questions in the chat. And I think next up is Linda. Do you want to just take control of the slide deck from here?
Sure, I'll do that. Hi, everybody. My name's Linda Cannon, and I'm a senior content project manager in the developer platform engagement group. So my team is responsible for things like the Microsoft 365 developer program and all of our dev center sites like developer.microsoft.com, Microsoft 365, that sort of thing. And I work with Juan and David and Abid. Anyway, I understand that some of our community members are concerned about our responsiveness to your ideas for our platform. And I'm here to tell you that, yes, we are very much aware of the situation. I wanted to give you a little bit of backstory for people who didn't know why we moved away from user voice. That happened last year. Sadly, they meaning the powers that be at Microsoft, kind of pulled the plug on us and surprised us and left us with a very, very few days to migrate the ideas that we did have on user voice to a new platform. The reason why they closed down user voice is because Microsoft is committed to privacy and compliance for our customers' data. And user voice was not complying with that. So they were not keeping your personal information private. And so it was a legal reason, even though on this support page that I'm showing you kind of has a blasé answer why Microsoft is moving away. A couple of people asked, well, what happened to the feedback we did provide? Our team was basically focusing on any suggestion that had over 100 votes. There was a whole bunch of data on user voice, and we did not save all of it, but we did migrate every suggestion for Office Developer Platform or SharePoint Developer Platform, Graph, and Teams over to a new site. And what we did was we created, and because the new feedback community wasn't ready yet, we kind of on the fly created this place on the tech community. And we created what we're calling the Microsoft 365 Developer Platform Ideas Forum, where you can submit ideas. And we have about 627 at the moment. Now, a couple of you have pointed out, well, hey, what's the point of doing that? Because there's 621 new, and it doesn't look like anybody's paying any attention. And I hear that, and I tend to agree. I don't think we did a very good job on user voice either. So we need to figure out how we can follow up and hear you, and you felt heard. I think that's the main problem. Another problem we have with this platform, by the way, I'm trying to be as transparent as I can, just so you guys know what our current situation is. So for the benefit of honesty, I'm just going to keep at that. So what we have here is the new developer platform. You can see I can sort by most upvotes. And if I choose our label Office Add-ins Development, for example, we have fewer. And you can see that out of all the ideas shown here, there's the top upvote is 27. Now, given that user voice was gigantic and this little corner of the world is much smaller, clearly we're not going to have as many people seeing this, as many to be able to upvote these ideas. So therein lies another problem, is we need to figure out what is a good vote cutoff to start paying attention. Another thing we have a problem with is the developers and the program managers getting their eyes on it. One of the things we do successfully, very successfully, is we have a feedback coordinator. It rotates through our team of about 30 PMs. Everybody has a week, about twice a year, and they go to our Office JS site, which I'm sure all of you know about, and the bot will triage a new idea. So every day somebody is looking at all these new issues and assigning them out. So I'm skipping ahead. You might be able to figure out where I'm going with this, but I wanted to share a couple other things with you. So we migrated off of user voice for our ideas and suggestions onto this interim developer platform. And now Microsoft has rolled out their corporate-wide feedback. This was just released back in October. And they've created all these sub forums for Teams, for all the Microsoft products. The link is in the slide, so you can have a look at this new thing. Even though we have products listed here, this is all product centric, and they only, like just recently, I'm clicking on Outlook, added a category for developers. So the reason why we have withheld migrating to this yet a third place for ideas and whatnot is because we didn't have a developer category. And them adding this is a result of me literally nagging them to death. So we now have some place where you can check and say, okay, I have a developer idea. This particular Microsoft feedback forum has a lot more traffic than what we're currently using. So one of our options is to take everything here and migrate it over there and start from there. But there still lies the problem. Well, that's great. Sending customers to yet a third place. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to get eyes on this? Engineering eyes, PM eyes. So my suggestion would be to my team is to add to our weekly feedback process coordinator. That person would go over to one of these feedback forums, whichever we decide, and triage those ideas as well. That way we don't have, I'm flipping tabs again, 621 new untriaged ideas. People would at least know what, if we're working on it, and we could, cross-reference if it's in the backlog, all that kind of stuff. So this is the new feedback forum for Microsoft. It does have all of the Office products in here, and each one of them does have a developer tool category. So, it's possible to use this. Up until recently, I felt it wasn't very easy to use because it didn't have developer tools. So if you're a product, for example, like SharePoint with 4,000 feedback, how do you know what the developer ideas are? But now we can filter on that. So that does make this much more usable, although we haven't migrated to it yet. So let's see, we've talked about what the current state is, we've talked about what some of the problems are, and we've talked about what these areas are where we can have feedback. Currently we're here, we've got this new community, but we also have our GitHub repo, and we do have a label that has, let's see, this is getting slow. One of our labels is a type. Let's see if I can go to the next page here. Product feature request. What we do here is we say, hey, that's a great product feature request. Go to one of these forums and submit your idea and then get everybody to upvote it. So I don't know if it's possible or not because GitHub does not have an upvote per se, although it does have a thumbs up. And I know that somebody's written a plugin that if you say +1 in the comments, it will count all those. So we would be able to know, the popular ideas. But the benefit of this site is that it does have people looking at it internally. It does have the engineers. It does have the PMs perusing all these issues in GitHub. So now you know kind of where we're at and the things that we are discussing internally. I don't think I've left anything out. We are trying to decide, and we really, really do value what you think about this situation. So again, we currently have this interim place that is not getting a lot of eyes and not getting a lot of processing. We do have the new community that now has a developer area for all of our areas. And then we also have GitHub with the potential to move issues and ideas there because we do have the tab. We do have problems to solve. If you have any ideas, such as how we should regulate or count votes, how we can get more eyes, how we can be more responsive, what it is you need from us. David and my colleague Elizabeth, I don't know if she's on this call, but the three of us are really paying attention to this process and trying to figure out what is the best for you. So I've shared everything that I can think of. David, did I leave anything out?
No, I don't think so. Did you want any feedback from folks if they
would love it? Yeah, they could put it
maybe
in
just
the chat, or if I don't know if we have time for questions right now, but
Well, we're
have
running a
to
little short on
answer.
time,
yeah, okay.
but
Yeah, let's have people put things in the chat and I'll review it with you and we can figure out where to go from here. Hopefully we'll have this ironed out for you folks by next month. That's knock on wood.
yeah, thanks, Linda. I think, I know this is a really important space for folks, and I'm often, I think, with 3 or 4 Q&As per call, like saying, hey, that's a great idea. Can you go put it in the ideas
Right.
site? So, I also want to be sure these things are getting attention. I'd also be kind of curious to hear from folks, like, I think there are GitHub repos out there that do track ideas like this and have some sort of voting system. So if anybody has experience with that or has participated in it and you have thoughts on that, we'd be curious to hear from you as well.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Linda. All right, so I tacked on one slide to the end here, which is kind of related to community. So I've set up a meeting on June 15th. It's a Teams meeting, which is the Wednesday after the next community call, which is on June 8th. So we're looking for feedback from folks on samples specifically. And so this will be kind of a deep dive with folks to just chat about samples and see what you need. We can see the traffic to the repo for samples, and it's about 5,000 folks a month roughly that are going and looking at the samples, but we can't tell, are folks being satisfied with what they see, or is the sample code copyable into your own projects and helping? Do we have gaps that we need to look at? Are there challenging parts of the development experience that maybe samples could help in some space? I mean, there's a lot we don't know, and so it would be great to hear from folks, from all you developers. What would you like to see in the samples over the next 6 months to year in terms of where you think we should go with it? So there's a link there, the aka.ms/office add-in samples-call. So that will take you to the team meeting. Of course, it doesn't start until June 15th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So please join us if you can. Some Q&A that came in on the Q&A forum for this last month. I wanted to go through some of these things. Real quick before I get to this first one, I do want to mention that there was quite a bit of discussion on the last call that was in the chat around Outlook add-ins, the Outlook REST API deprecation in November coming up, and migrating to Microsoft Graph SSO. There's kind of like a bunch of questions in that space. And so I just want to let folks know, like, we're still looking into that, and we're hoping probably on the June call, maybe to offer some more guidance in that space. So I just didn't want you to think like we'd forgotten about that. We just haven't got to the final part of that with sharing out some more info. So this first question here is, I'd love to follow up on this feature request. And this is the feature request to implement Office.js save and close methods across Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It says, apologies for my persistence, but this is literally the only blocking issue for us to move from old add-ins to the GS add-ins platform. We'd really, really appreciate if you could push this into the roadmap, represent many clients with many employees. So do not take the 20 upvotes at face value. We represent hundreds of users, and the deployments of the old add-ins and updates are not ideal. Thank you so much. So yeah, we're sorry you're being blocked by this. And I chatted with the team, and unfortunately, this isn't something we can put on the roadmap at this time. It's not saying we're not going to do it, but it's just not there right now. We'll continue to keep an eye on the request, and we appreciate your persistence. It's a tough answer to give because, I mean, you could say, well, if you meet some threshold of upvotes, it should happen. But there's more factors in deciding how things get on the roadmap. Sometimes something that looks really simple to do might turn out to be really complex because there's some unknown security thing that has to be dealt with to make the implementation happen, or maybe the effort involved would come at the expense of 5 other features that are going to unblock a bunch of other people. So there's a lot of factors go into this. So I just didn't want anyone to take this like, hey, we're ignoring you, when you ask for some feature that we can't get on the roadmap. It's working with limited resources. But what I would say in the meantime is a workaround. You might want to explore continuing to use your COM add-in, since it looks like you have that. So you can have full functionality in Windows on desktop, and then you can have the web add-in version have partial functionality, where it wouldn't necessarily have save and close everywhere. And there's a way to make it so that when someone opens Word or Excel on desktop, it'll use the COM add-in instead of the web add-in version. And so there's a link to an article here that explains how to set that up, but I hope that helps. So next question was on opening Outlook mobile API to compose scenarios to insert attachments in emails. Currently, third-party cloud storage companies cannot integrate directly into Outlook Mobile. With this API, we'd be able to click a button and insert files from private cloud storage providers into emails. Thank you. Yeah, this is very interesting, and we'd be curious to know more about this scenario. So I put in a link here to the M365 Dev suggestion site. Let us know more about it, about that scenario. Next question was how to communicate from a Word add-in to an Office.js task pane. For example, on content enter, highlight one HTML control in the task pane. I saw that this question was also posted to the Q&A site, so I did follow up with a comment there, just kind of looking for more information. It seems like you should be able to use the on selection changed event, but if not, just follow up on the question that's on the Q&A site and we can try to help you there. And then another question below that one, are you planning on upgrading the Visual Studio Web add-in templates to ASP.NET Core? So yeah, we're looking into some updates to the Visual Studio Office add-in templates. I asked the team about this. We don't have anything on the roadmap right now, but it would be great to know more, like, are there, if we do updates, are there specific things you're looking for? Is it just ASP.NET Core? Are there other things? So definitely let us know at M365Dev-suggestions. And another question.
Hey, David, can I add more details to a question?
Oh, sorry.
Can you go to the previous slide, please?
This one here.
So question number 3, you can definitely do it like suggested here. Content controls, but it's a bit tricky because we don't have an event on the content control. And so basically what you need to do is to create a binding. And basically on the Word API, when you create a binding, actually a content control, a content control is created. And then bindings have an unselected event. So basically, once you have a content control, you can create a binding by ID by using the content control title. And then you can subscribe to the unbinding selected, and that will give you the event you need to communicate with the task pane. Sorry, we just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Juan. So the question came in, has the PowerPoint API 1.3 been officially released to all platforms? It is supported on Windows, Mac, and the web, but it's not on iOS or mobile at this time. And I put in a link to the PowerPoint JavaScript API requirement sets page, which tracks which platforms it's on if you want to follow that. This question came in just today, I think. I have 2 questions relating to Get Access Token, and I'll just kind of summarize this since we're running short on time. But basically, it comes down to: are we supposed to use, when we call Get Access Token, are we supposed to use Office runtime.auth.get access token? Are we supposed to use office.auth.get access token? There's also a way you can call into context.auth.get access token. So basically, the answer is you can use Office runtime.auth.get access token, or you can use office.auth.get access token. Under the hood, they call the same thing. They're equivalent. So feel free to use either one. But to be consistent, we're in the process of updating all the docs and samples to be sure they always use office.auth.get access token, because I know as a developer, if you see 2 ways to do something, you're going to ask, well, which one should I use? So in this case, they're both equivalent. Don't use context.auth.get access token. I don't believe that works in all scenarios. So I'll thank you for the links to the docs and the Stack Overflow post. I'll go take a look at those and make sure we've provided the correct and latest guidance there. So hopefully that helps. And there's also a question that came in. This came in kind of late, so we haven't really had time to dig into it. Basically, during the last call, there's a question that came up about programmatically letting the compose window disappear after the user clicks on a custom encrypt and send button. So I'm following up with Juan and the Outlook team to try to help with more info there. And then, is there a way for the admin to install an Excel add-in for the user group that will show only for some Excel files generated by application and not when the user creates a new Excel file or some other Excel files opened by the user? And this is another question that came in, I think, like just this morning. So we haven't had a chance to really dig into it. So we'll follow up in the blog post with more info. And finally, just kind of wrap things up here. If you're new to Office add-ins on this call, welcome to the call. And there's some additional resources here you can take a look at for some documentation. We have different quick starts for the different products. That'll get you up and running in 5 minutes. You can use ScriptLab to try out samples without requiring to set up a dev environment. We also have a link to our samples. You can get a free Microsoft 365 developer tenant through the developer program, which is highly useful for testing and building your add-ins. And of course, we also have Office scripts if you want to do automation of your documents. And if you need to engage with the team, if you have technical questions about Office add-ins, you can either go to our Office add-ins dev questions Q&A page, and there's 2 tags there you can use to tag those questions, or you can go to stackoverflow.com and there's some additional tags there depending on what info you're looking for. If you found what looks to be a product bug, let us know on the Office-JS repo. And if you have feature requests and ideas, you can go to M365-suggestions and let us know. And of course, you can always send a smile and frown inside Office. Oh, thanks, Linda. And of course, this isn't the only developer community call that's out there. We have additional calls across Microsoft 365 on adaptive cards and Power Apps. And if any of these calls look interesting, please go check them out. And finally, just say thanks, everyone, for attending. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 Community PNP YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev or at M365PNP. The next call will be June 8th, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And the agenda will be posted at that agenda link below, usually about a week before the call. The agenda's out. And if you have any questions in advance of the call, let us know at the aka.ms/office add-ins form. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you on the next call.